We used to be different. Sarah and I met at a tech conference in Portland 6 years ago. She was presenting on digital marketing strategies, and I was there representing my software development firm, Bytecraft Solutions. She had this way of making complex ideas feel simple, like she was letting you in on a secret. I fell for her confidence first, her laugh second, and everything else after that. I remember the exact moment I knew I wanted to marry her. We were walking along the waterfront after her presentation, and she stopped mid-sentence to help a tourist figure out their map. The way she smiled at them, patient and genuine, like their confusion was the most important thing in her world right then. That's when I knew. Our first year was electric. Weekend trips to the coast where we'd rent a cabin and unplug completely. Late-night conversations that stretched until sunrise, debating everything from philosophy to the best pizza toppings. Spontaneous decisions that felt brave instead of reckless, like the time we drove to Seattle at midnight just to watch the sun rise over Puget Sound. We got married in a small ceremony in Bend, surrounded by pine trees and people who actually mattered. 50 guests, handwritten vows, a reception in a barn that smelled like cedar and wildflowers. Sarah's friend Jennifer was her maid of honor. Back then, she seemed harmless, even charming. She gave a toast about how Sarah had finally found someone who could keep up with her. Everyone laughed. I thought it was a compliment. The honeymoon was 2 weeks in Costa Rica. We zip-lined through rainforests, learned to surf badly, and spent entire afternoons doing nothing but reading in hammocks. Sarah joked that we should just stay there forever, open a surf shop, sell coconuts to tourists. For a moment, I actually considered it. We bought the house in Vancouver 2 years later. A craftsman with good bones in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where people actually wave to each other. Sarah picked out paint colors while I handled the renovation plans. She wanted the bedroom a soft gray, the kitchen a warm cream. We spent weekends at home improvement stores, arguing cheerfully about cabinet hardware and light fixtures. We hosted dinners, game nights, holiday parties. Our friends Michael and Rachel came over every other weekend for board games and too much wine. Life felt balanced, purposeful, like we were building something real together. Then Sarah's career took off. She joined Momentum Marketing Group as a senior consultant, working longer hours, traveling to Seattle and San Francisco for client meetings. I supported it, encouraged it, even. I was proud of her. Watching her present at conferences, seeing her name on industry articles, hearing her strategize with clients. She was brilliant, and she deserved every success. But somewhere in the third year, the space between us started stretching. Conversations became check-ins. Dinners became logistics meetings about who was picking up groceries and whether we'd paid the water bill. Intimacy became scheduled, then rare, then theoretical. Date nights turned into her laptop open at the restaurant table, apologizing between emails. I tried. Planned surprise getaways she'd cancel last minute because of client emergencies. Suggested couples cooking classes she'd dismiss as forced bonding. Asked questions about her day that she'd answer with exhausted one-word responses while scrolling through her phone, barely looking up. "We're just busy," she'd say whenever I brought it up. "This is what adult relationships look like. Not everything can be honeymoon phase forever, Daniel." Maybe she was right. Maybe I was romanticizing something that had naturally evolved into comfortable companionship. Maybe this was just what happened when two careers collided with real life. Or maybe we were both too comfortable with the wrong things, me with settling, her with distance. By year 5, we were roommates who occasionally remembered we were married. We had separate sides of the bed, separate morning routines, separate friends we saw separately. The house that once felt full of shared dreams now felt like a well-organized storage facility for two people's individual lives. And I had accepted that as normal, convinced myself that this was maturity, that passion fading was natural, until I came home early that Friday and heard voices I wasn't supposed to hear. I came home earlier than usual that Friday, not because I was efficient, but because my tolerance for people had expired. The office politics at Bytecraft had been suffocating lately. My manager, Todd, had spent 3 hours in a meeting explaining why we needed more meetings. Someone had stolen my lunch from the break room fridge for the 4th time that month. And the intern kept asking me to explain basic programming concepts he should have learned in his first semester. By 2:30, I'd hit my limit. I told Todd I was working from home the rest of the day, grabbed my laptop bag, and left before anyone could schedule another synergy session. The house greeted me with an awkward kind of quiet, the sort that feels rehearsed. My car in the driveway was the only vehicle, which should have meant Sarah was out. But then I heard voices drifting from the kitchen. Sarah. A speakerphone. Too much laughter, the kind that comes with shared secrets and wine at 3 in the afternoon. I stood in the entryway, keys still in my hand, listening. You have to stop responding first, Jennifer was saying, her tone sharp and confident, like she was running a seminar instead of sabotaging a marriage. 10 days minimum. 2 weeks if you're brave. Silence makes men unravel. They're not used to it. They expect us to chase, to fix, to smooth things over. When we don't, they panic. Another voice chimed in, Monica, Sarah's colleague from Momentum. I recognized her voice from the few company parties I'd attended. Worked on my husband like a charm. Day 9 he showed up with flowers and apologies. Day 11 he booked a romantic getaway to wine country. Day 14 he actually cried and said he'd been taking me for granted. There was laughter all around. Celebratory. Victorious. Sarah hesitated. I don't know. Daniel doesn't really panic. He's pretty even-keeled about everything. That's exactly why it'll work, Jennifer replied, her voice dripping with certainty. Men like him think everything's stable. They assume you'll always be there, always be fine, always forgive. Prove it's not stable. Prove you might not be there. That uncertainty will eat at him. Then another voice slid in, male, smooth, familiar enough to make my stomach drop. Honestly, Eric said, chuckling like he was discussing sports scores, a little distance might actually be good for both of them. If he doesn't notice her pulling back, maybe he doesn't deserve the effort she's been putting in. Eric, her coworker from Momentum, the one who always seemed to text her during our increasingly rare dinners together. The one whose name came up in conversation just a bit too frequently, always with explanations that were slightly too detailed. The one she'd mentioned was going through a divorce and needed a friend. I stood frozen near the hallway, letting it all sink in. A strategy. A countdown. A psychological test designed to make me scramble, prove my worth, fight for her attention like a dog competing for scraps. Fine. If she wanted silence, I could do silence properly. Not yelling. Not begging. Not the desperate reaction they were all expecting and probably hoping for. Just absence, slow, deliberate, irreversible. I finally stepped into the kitchen. Eric was leaning against the counter with one of my craft beers, like he belonged there. His tie was loosened, sleeves rolled up, completely comfortable in my space. Sarah jumped when she saw me, her phone nearly sliding off the counter. Oh, you're home already? Apparently I was being too productive, I said, setting my laptop bag down carefully. Corporate safety hazard. Todd was worried I'd make everyone else look bad. She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm trying something new. Focusing inward. Self-care and boundaries, you know. Great, I replied, my tone neutral. Let me know if you need a permission slip for that. She rolled her eyes and headed upstairs without another word. Eric lingered, swirling the beer in his bottle like we were about to have a meaningful chat. Don't take it personally, he said, lowering his voice like we were sharing a confidence. She's under a lot of pressure at work. Big client presentation next week. You know how she gets. Good to know, I answered, meeting his eyes. Pressure builds diamonds. Or explosions. Time will tell which one we're dealing with. He smirked, raised his beer in a mock salute, and left through the front door like he'd been invited over for a casual Friday hangout. I stood in my kitchen, and felt something shift. Not anger, not yet. Just clarity. Cold, mathematical clarity. That night was the beginning of what I privately called the quiet experiment. Sarah moved through the house like a courteous stranger staying at an Airbnb. Answers were short, carefully neutral. Eye contact was rare and accidental. Conversations died before they formed, suffocated by her strategic silence and my newfound indifference. I stopped trying to bridge the gap. Instead, I started sorting. Not emotionally. That would come later, probably around 3 in the morning, when insomnia and reality collided. No, this was logistical. Practical. The kind of sorting you do when you're planning an exit strategy and don't want to forget anything important. What was mine? What could be replaced? What I didn't care about anymore. I pulled out the old boxes from the garage, ones we'd never unpacked after the move 3 years ago. Found photos from our early days, trip souvenirs, handwritten notes we used to leave each other around the apartment. Post-its on the bathroom mirror saying, "You're gorgeous, and can't wait to see you tonight." Evidence of people we used to be, artifacts from an archaeological dig of our former happiness. Eric texted me that evening. Then again the next morning. Then daily after that. Advice I didn't ask for, delivered with the confidence of someone who thought he was being helpful. Give her space, man. Women need to process things differently. Don't react emotionally. Stay calm. That's what she needs to see right now. Let her miss you. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, right? Funny how invested he was in my marriage. How convenient that his advice perfectly aligned with Sarah's strategy. Almost like they'd discussed it. Day 2 felt like living in a museum of our former life. Everything looked the same, but meant something different now. Sarah made coffee in the morning without asking if I wanted any, like I'd become invisible overnight. I cooked breakfast without offering her a plate, establishing my own pattern of deliberate distance. We moved around each other with the precision of strangers in a crowded elevator, careful not to touch, not to acknowledge, not to exist in the same emotional space despite sharing the same physical one. I called my friend Alex that afternoon. We'd been roommates in college, stayed close through the years. He was blunt, sometimes to a fault, but I needed blunt right now. "She's doing what?" he asked, his voice rising. "Playing relationship chicken. Some kind of test to see if I'll panic and chase her. And you're just letting her?" "I'm letting her think she's winning," I said, watching Sarah through the window as she paced on the deck, phone pressed to her ear, probably talking to Jennifer or Monica about how well their plan was working. "That's cold, man." "That's strategic," I corrected. "She wants to test my attachment." "Fine. I'll show her exactly how attached I am, or aren't." By day 3, something shifted. Sarah started watching me instead of ignoring me. I'd catch her staring from across the room, her expression confused, like I wasn't following the script she'd been given. I stayed calm, made jokes to myself, cooked elaborate dinners for one. Slept fine, better than I had in months, actually. That confused her. I could see it in the way her forehead creased, the way she'd open her mouth to say something and then close it again. "You're not upset," she said one evening, catching me humming while doing dishes. "Nope. That's weird." "I'm branching out," I replied, scrubbing a plate with deliberate focus. "Trying emotional minimalism. Very trendy. There are podcasts about it and everything." She didn't laugh. Just stood there for another moment before retreating back upstairs. Day 4, I started researching apartments in Portland. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom with good light, near the office, in a building with decent soundproofing. Looked at furniture online, the kind of minimalist stuff I'd always wanted but Sarah had vetoed as too cold. Made a list of utilities to transfer, subscriptions to cancel, addresses to change. Sarah asked what I was doing on my laptop, her tone attempting casual, but landing somewhere closer to suspicious. "Work stuff," I said. Technically true. I was working on my exit strategy, and it required just as much planning as any project at Bytecraft. She seemed satisfied with that answer and went back to her own laptop, typing messages that made her smile in ways I hadn't seen directed at me in months. By day 5, she was dressing better just to run errands. Hair styled. Makeup carefully applied. A nice blouse for a trip to the grocery store. Perfume, the expensive one, for picking up dry cleaning. I didn't comment. Just watched the performance with detached interest. By day 6, Eric was stopping by constantly. "Just checking in on you guys. Dropping off files for Sarah. Couldn't email them, too large. Thought I'd see if you needed anything. I'm heading to the store anyway." I started keeping a mental tally. 3 visits in 2 days. Each one lasting progressively longer. Each one featuring that same comfortable body language, like he was auditioning for the role of man of the house. "Your coworker's very dedicated," I told Sarah after the 3rd visit. "He's being supportive during a stressful time. So supportive he's practically applying for residency. Should I start charging him rent? You're being paranoid. And you're being obvious." She slammed a cabinet door hard enough to rattle the dishes inside and walked away. By day 7, her friends were back on speaker in the kitchen. I was in the garage, organizing tools I'd be taking with me, but the window was open and voices carried. "He hasn't cracked," Jennifer said, her voice smug and satisfied. Day 7 and not a single jealous outburst, not one desperate attempt to win her back. "Perfect," Monica answered. "Men always break late. The calm ones especially. They hold it together until day 10 or 11, then completely fall apart." Eric added softly, almost philosophically, "Or maybe he's realizing he doesn't need to chase. Maybe he's done chasing." There was a pause. Someone, probably Sarah, shifted uncomfortably. "That won't happen," Jennifer said firmly. "He'll panic. They all do eventually." But I could hear the doubt creeping into their voices. The plan was supposed to make me desperate. Instead, I was methodical. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about fixing us. This wasn't about making me appreciate her more or step up as a partner. This was about replacing me quietly with witnesses with a built-in excuse. With Eric waiting in the wings, patient and available. So I stopped waiting for anything to change. I opened a new account at a different bank, one Sarah didn't have access to. Started having my paychecks direct deposited there instead. Packed winter clothes into duffel bags I hid in my car trunk. Took down our wedding photo from the living room mantel and put it in a drawer, not angrily, just accurately. It didn't represent anything current. It was historical documentation at this point. Day 8, I signed the lease on the Portland apartment. Security deposit paid. First month's rent cleared. Move-in date, next Saturday, the day after their planned victory dinner. The apartment was in a new building in the Pearl District, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows. It had a view of the city, a gym in the building, a coffee shop on the ground floor. Everything felt fresh, uncontaminated by the slow decay of the past 2 years. I felt nothing when I signed the lease. No sadness, no anger, not even vindication. Just the calm that comes from finally making a decision you should have made months ago. The calm of a door closing and a window opening somewhere else. That night, Sarah tried to start a conversation while I was reading on the couch. "Do you think we should talk about things?" "What things?" I asked, not looking up from my book. "Us. Where we are. Where this is going." "We're in Vancouver," I said, marking my page. "In a house. Having a conversation about having a conversation. As for where it's going, you tell me. You're the one running the experiment." "I'm not." She stopped herself. "You're being difficult." "I'm being accurate." She sighed heavily, like I was the one being unreasonable, and went to bed. I stayed up until 2 in the morning, reading and listening to the house settle around me. It already felt like somewhere I used to live. By day 10, Sarah was glued to her phone constantly, smiling at messages she didn't want to explain. She'd laugh softly at something, then catch me watching and school her expression into careful neutrality. "Who's making you grin like that?" I asked over breakfast. "Jennifer," she said too fast. "She sent a funny meme." "Tell her she's hilarious," I replied. "She should tour. Bring her act to corporate events." Really monetize that humor. She accused me of being paranoid again. I accused her of being transparent. The argument lasted 30 seconds before we both gave up, exhausted by the performance. That night, while she slept upstairs, I sealed the last box and slid it into the trunk of my car. No drama. No farewell speech to empty rooms. Just clarity and careful planning. I'd arranged for the moving company to pick up the furniture next week. Just my desk, my bookshelf, the leather chair her mother had always hated. Everything else she could keep or burn or give to Eric. I didn't care. Canceled subscriptions I'd been paying for. Changed my address with the post office. Updated my emergency contacts at work, removing her name and adding Alex instead. By day 11, the house felt neutral. Like a hotel I was checking out of. Like a stage after the play has ended and everyone's gone home. Sarah looked exhausted, confused. The silence she'd carefully designed had stopped working on me, and that terrified her more than any argument we'd ever had. She wanted me restless, anxious, desperate to fix whatever was breaking between us. Instead, I was ready, packed, calm, already gone in every way that mattered. Because somewhere between her experiment and my quiet planning, the roles had flipped completely. She was testing whether I'd fight for her. I was deciding whether I still belonged in a house that hadn't felt like home in over a year. That morning, she found me in the kitchen humming an old song. One from our wedding playlist, actually. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Did you dream about me?" I asked, grinning like everything was normal. She gave me that flat stare she usually reserved for bad jokes and unpaid parking tickets. The look that said I was being childish, and she was too mature to engage. "Can you not?" "Just contributing to the atmosphere," I said cheerfully. "Filling the silence with joy and music. Creating ambience." "Well, don't." I smiled wider. Message received, loud and clear. We ate breakfast like strangers sharing an airport lounge. Same space, zero connection. She stood at the counter, scrolling through her phone. I sat at the table with the newspaper I'd ironically started buying, just to have something to do with my hands. Words hovered between us, unsaid but loud enough to drown out everything else. Finally, she exhaled sharply. "You're way too calm about all of this. It's unsettling. I'm trying to match your energy, and that's not how this is supposed to go." "Then maybe the instructions are wrong. I said, not looking up from the sports section. She slammed her mug down just hard enough to prove a point without breaking anything. You're impossible. Reliably so. Consistently impossible. You could set your watch by my impossibility. Then she added, almost casually but with too much emphasis, Eric's stopping by later. He's helping me fix the shelf in the office again. That shelf gets more emotional support than I do, I replied. Maybe we should all go to therapy together. Me, you, Eric, and the shelf. Really work through our issues as a group. She sighed. He's just helping. Yeah, I said. He's very good at helping himself into things. Very generous with his time and presence. She paused, studying me. Are you jealous? No, I said honestly. I'm allergic. To what? Performance art. And I think we've both been starring in it for about 11 days now. She walked off before the conversation could rot further. Probably wise. We'd both said enough. That afternoon, Eric showed up wearing his usual concerned but relaxed expression, like a therapist making a house call. Khakis pressed. Shirt tucked in but not too formally. The perfect balance of I'm here to help and I'm available. I let him in without a word. Watched him laugh with Sarah from across the room, while pretending not to notice how choreographed it all felt. The way he touched her shoulder when emphasizing a point. The way she leaned in when he spoke. The way they both worked very hard to appear casual. When he left 2 hours later, 2 hours to fix a shelf that I'd installed perfectly well 3 months ago, he clapped my shoulder with practiced familiarity. Sometimes it's healthier to let go before things get toxic, you know? He said it like he was offering profound wisdom instead of justifying his own agenda. I nodded slowly. You'd be the expert on that. Divorce finalized yet, or are you still workshopping the process? His smile faltered for just a second. Next month. It's been complicated. Isn't it always? I said, closing the door behind him. That night, the house felt hollow. Sarah upstairs in what had become effectively her bedroom. Me in the garage, staring at the last 2 boxes that wouldn't fit in the car. I stacked them carefully, looked at the car packed with my life in compressed form, and said out loud to no one, 14 days, right? Let's see who cracks first. The words echoed in the empty garage. Nobody answered. Day 12 arrived wearing kindness like a disguise, badly fitted and obviously temporary. Sarah hummed while making tea, the expensive loose-leaf kind she only broke out for special occasions. She smiled. Actually smiled, with teeth and eye contact and everything. Offered to make me breakfast. That's when I knew something was deeply wrong. Morning, I said cautiously. Hi. Too bright. Too enthusiastic. Like a flight attendant welcoming passengers aboard a plane that was definitely going to crash. She tilted her head. Want eggs? I could make eggs. Or pancakes. We have mix. I squinted at her. Who are you, and where did you hide my wife? She laughed softly, the sound almost genuine. I've just been tense lately. I know I haven't been easy to live with. Tense is polite, I said. I had stronger vocabulary prepared. I've been building quite a collection, actually. Making a list. She sat down at the table on purpose, directly across from me. That alone felt like a plot twist. She hadn't voluntarily sat at the same table with me in over a week. I was thinking of having people over this weekend, she said carefully, watching my reaction. Just something small. Low-key. Define small. Jennifer. Monica. Maybe Eric. Of course, Eric. The holy trinity of my marriage's demise. Wouldn't want to disrupt tradition, I said. At this point, I should invoice him for utilities. He's here enough. Daniel. I'm kidding. Mostly. 75% kidding. Maybe 60. Truth was, I didn't care anymore. By the weekend, this wouldn't be my problem. This wouldn't be my house. These wouldn't be my arguments to have. That afternoon, I finalized the lease paperwork. New address in Portland's Pearl District. New lot code. No hesitation. I even bought new sheets online, starting completely fresh. I called Marcus again. It's done, I said. The apartment? Everything. Moving truck comes Sunday morning. You didn't tell her? She's been too busy not talking to me. He laughed. That's cold, man. That night, everything looked the same, but felt stripped bare. Like the house had been emotionally evacuated. You okay? Sarah asked, noticing me standing still in the hallway, looking at empty walls where photos used to hang. I'm great, I said. You? I think I'm figuring things out. Me too. We stood there. Almost said something meaningful. Almost didn't. Day 13 smelled like cleaning chemicals and desperation. She scrubbed everything. Candles. Vacuum lines so sharp they looked aggressive. The house hadn't been this clean since we moved in. Big event? I asked. Dinner tomorrow. Nothing says romance like sanitized regret. She glared. Jennifer and Monica arrived around noon, encouragement leaking through the walls like bad advice radio. He'll come around. Men always do by day 14. You're doing great, Sarah. Eric joined them later, sliding in like he belonged. I heard him in the living room, his voice smooth and reassuring. She deserves someone who truly sees her, he said, probably with meaningful eye contact and a hand on her arm. Someone who makes her a priority. I packed tools into a box labeled random stuff in black Sharpie and laughed under my breath. He was good. Dangerous, but predictable. The playbook was standard issue. Be there, be supportive, wait for the opening, slide into place. That night, Sarah cooked a real meal for the first time in weeks. Candles on the table. Pasta from scratch. Effort. Visible, desperate effort. I think the space helped, she said carefully, serving wine she'd chilled to the perfect temperature. I feel more balanced. More clear about what I want. That's great, I replied, twirling pasta on my fork. Balance matters. Clarity's important. You could meet me halfway, you know. I've been trying. I am, I said, setting down my fork and looking directly at her. Halfway out. Her fork froze midair. Her face went pale. You're joking. Not tonight. Not about this. Daniel, I was trying to fix us. You were trying to manage me. There's a difference. Fixing implies partnership. Managing implies control. The silence that followed finally told the truth we'd both been avoiding for months, maybe years. Day 14. The table was perfect. Candles lit in holders I'd never seen before, probably bought special for tonight. Glasses aligned with geometric precision. Cloth napkins folded into fancy shapes. A victory lap disguised as a romantic dinner. You really went all out, I said, surveying the scene. It looked like a magazine spread for an article titled, How to Save Your Marriage in 14 Days or Less. She smiled nervously, too bright, too desperate. I wanted us to have a nice night. Reset everything. Start fresh. Almost makes me wish I was staying, I said softly. Her smile fell like a stone. I placed my keys on the counter carefully. House keys. Car keys she'd given me for emergencies. The whole jangling set of our shared life. You wanted silence, I said calmly. Distance. Control. You got all of it. You're leaving? I've been leaving for 2 weeks. You just didn't notice. The doorbell rang. Jennifer. Monica. Eric. All standing on the porch with wine bottles and forced smiles, the intervention committee ready for their victory celebration. Your audience is here, I said, gesturing toward the door like a host at a party. Enjoy the finale. I hear day 14 is supposed to be very dramatic. She whispered desperately, please don't do this now. Not in front of them. You taught me the rule, I said gently, almost kindly. Silence, remember? Strategic silence. Let them wonder. Let them feel uncertain. It's very effective, just like you said. I opened the door to shocked faces. Jennifer's mouth actually fell open. Monica took a step back. Eric looked confused, like the script had been changed without his knowledge. I nodded once at all of them and handed Eric the keys. All of them, including the spare set. Take care of her, I said, meeting his eyes steadily. You've been rehearsing for weeks. Time for opening night. Jennifer started to say something, but I was already walking toward my car. Everything I needed was already loaded. Everything I cared about was already gone. The moving truck would get the remaining furniture tomorrow, but I'd be in my new apartment by then, unpacking a life that didn't include this house or these people. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror once. Just once. Sarah stood in the doorway, backlit by the candles she'd lit for our romantic dinner, finally understanding what silence actually costs when someone else wields it. Jennifer and Monica flanked her like confused attendants at a play that had gone completely off script. Eric stood awkwardly on the porch, holding the keys to a house that wasn't his, to a life he'd been circling for weeks. No yelling. No slammed doors. No dramatic speeches about betrayal or broken promises. Just the quiet she thought she wanted, and the freedom I'd been planning all along. I turned onto the highway toward Portland, rolled down the windows, and turned up the music loud enough to drown out 2 weeks of strategic silence. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could breathe. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.